It is 6:17 now here in Houston's Morning News. There's a lot of hypocritical things that happen in Washington, D.C., but one of the things that always strikes me whenever the House or the Senate calls in Big Pharma to yell at them about drug prices when they're getting campaign donations from Big Pharma and they're more than happy to spend the money, but they put on the dog and pony show for their constituents.
Yeah, someone said $2 million worth of campaign contributions were in that room.
Yeah, so I kind of find that whole thing rather disingenuous. Joining us to talk about it and about Big Pharma and high drug prices from GDP Advisors, healthcare expert Seth Denson. You also find it somewhat hypocritical, Seth?
Yeah, I think it was me, was that someone that said that our team did the research of the Senate Finance Committee and who was overseeing that hearing. And yeah, you had well over $2 million in campaign contribution through PACs. So I do question who's asking the question and what's the sincerity behind this question.
Yeah,
well, Seth, I got to give you attribution. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
So what is the real, I mean, we talk about this in circles all the time, how we pay more for drug prices in this country than people do in any other country. Why are we the ones that are footing the bill?
Well, in large part is because of the way that the system is set up in the United States. And again, what I would point to is if the U.S. Senate and the legislators are really interested in reducing the cost of prescription drugs, the people to pull into that room aren't the manufacturers. I'm not here to defend Big Pharma by any stretch of the means, but they're just playing by the rules that they're given. It's the FDA that controls new drugs coming to market. It's the Justice Department that controls patents being extended in the Trade Department. So you've got branches of government that are controlling competition. We have a free market system. And so getting back to your question, the reason we pay more is because we don't allow proper competition in the United States. We make it cost too much to bring new drugs to market. And because we are a free market system and we want to keep it that way, I want to keep it that way, the government's not going to come in and price control like it does in other countries. So the U.S. taxpayer is paying for the research and development of the drug, while the rest of the world is just paying for top-line growth of these pharmaceutical companies.
And that's pretty much the way of government regulation of virtually everything in industry. We've seen how it's burgeoned, how it's grown when President Trump started removing some of these obstacles.
Well, that's right. But, again, I think that what happens here is that we really need the FDA to make it more cost-effective to bring drugs to market so more companies can. On average, it costs $2 billion and almost 12 years to bring a drug to market, and that's if one succeeds. So that's a lot of money to try to recoup, and so we need more companies to be able to step up and bring more drugs to market. And how do we do that? We reduce the red tape restrictions. We allow for foreign markets to allow their testing. Listen, if a test on a drug was done in, let's say, Great Britain or France, those clinical trials, they're not allowed in the United States. They have to start over here. The FDA requires that. And so the costs associated with that are astronomical. We need to make it easier to bring new, innovative drugs to market.
Yeah, I guess Big Pharma would defend themselves by saying, as you said, it costs billions of dollars to develop these drugs, and if we cannot recoup the cost and make some money from them, then there's no motivation or incentive for us to continue to innovate.
Well, and that's right, and we don't want that to happen, right? But they probably wouldn't like me touting that we need to bring more competition into the space either. Listen, Big Pharma has learned the way the game is played, and they play it brilliantly. But that's not a good thing. When I say brilliantly, it's just that they're smart and they've realized what they can get away with. You've got a number of drugs that are getting massive patent extensions, and they've learned to game the system. And I'll say this real quick. So if I'm bringing a drug to market, I'm a Big Pharma, what they are now doing is they are creating multiple ways in which that drug can be molecularly structured, and right before they lose patent, they'll refile that patent by using a new molecular structure. And so what that means is the U.S. government issues a new patent extension. And so you've got a drug that's about to come off patent, so there can be competition, and they effectively squash out the competition, and the U.S. government's letting them do it, and they're actually supporting it.
Okay. Seth, thanks for bringing us up to date on that. Appreciate it. Seth Denson, healthcare expert at GDP Advisors, joining us. You're on Newsradio 740 KTRH.